News Channel 3's Hannah Knowles is live from Western Michigan University alongside a political science expert to break down what we saw last night. Hannah.
Night one of the presidential debates now in the books and going down as an event that many of us won't forget. Now the candidates wasting no time to score points on highly anticipated topics from the coronavirus pandemic to racial equality. And joining me live this morning, this is Peter Wielhouwer. He's a political science professor here at Western Michigan University. Thanks for waking up early with us. All right, let's get to it. Now, Peter, the two candidates that we saw go face to face in the debate stage last night, they're both two very different people. What was your take on their debate strategies and the skills that we saw them use?
Well, when we think about how Donald Trump approached the debate, he clearly was loaded for bear. He was throwing everything against the wall. He was breaking kind of the norms of even what we see now as debates by ignoring the rules and that he and his team had agreed to, constantly interrupting Joe Biden. Joe Biden's approach early on seemed to be trying to adhere to those, but then he also just devolved into name-calling and interrupting. And the first half in particular was particularly difficult to listen to and try to get any substantive information out of that.
And would you consider either of them as, strong debaters?
Well, when we think about debate, this is not high school debate. This is not what we learned about when you're supposed to do public speaking. This was more, and presidential debates have long been seen as not real debates, but just like opportunities for the candidates to make their bullet points and find opportunities for criticism of the other. And I think in this case, both candidates did that. They were trying to criticize the other, draw contrast between themselves and the opponent. I think that they both had really different styles of doing that, of course, but I think they both did a good job in terms of what they felt like they had to accomplish. Trump being seen as an attack dog, and Biden trying to seem like the reassuring adult in the room.
All right, let's take a trip down memory lane. When looking at the debate that we saw last night compared to what we saw in 2016 when President Donald Trump faced off against Hillary Clinton, what would you say compared, how did this look compared to that in 2016 to what we saw last night?
I think when most people think about the 2016 debates against Hillary Clinton, they have a visual image of Donald Trump kind of lurking in the background of the camera shots of Hillary Clinton. And in some ways, this was just a verbal version of that because they were behind podiums. The approach of Donald Trump was to still be lurking in Joe Biden's space, but he had to do it verbally because they weren't moving around. And I think that that's basically the same approach that he took. There's an element at which Donald Trump debates women and deals with women differently than he deals with men, and we certainly saw that in kind of the way that he approached them. But it's clear that he just didn't care for either candidate and was really harshly critical, and that all the pretense of politeness and mutual respect was just out the window.
All right, let's talk about the moderator, Fox News anchor Chris Wallace. Was he fair to both candidates, in your opinion? How do you think he handled last night's debate?
Chris Wallace had a tough job because for the last 3.5 years as president of the United States, Donald Trump seems to have pretty effectively removed anybody from his space that severely contradicts him or tells him to be quiet, tells him not to say anything. And so for Chris Wallace, his job was to try to wrangle the president to get him to obey the rules that they had agreed to. And that was a tough job. And we even saw, maybe in the second half more, Chris Wallace kind of going along with Joe Biden and saying things like, yeah, I'm having a hard time getting a word in edgewise as well. So, I mean, I think it was a really tough job.
Do you think that the moderator could affect the debate, like for the voters' viewpoint? Do you think he has that kind of power, I'd say?
It's difficult to say whether the moderator has that kind of power. I think that what's useful is that Donald Trump went after Chris Wallace a couple of times with snide remarks about, basically being expected that he was going to be against Trump and for Biden. And so I think that really, that puts the moderator in a position that isn't really helpful for most voters, except to try to evoke and pull out substantive answers.
All right. Well, we have a few other questions we'll ask you coming up next in the next show. Thank you so much for waking up early with us. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Kirk and Laura, we will send it back into the studio. But if you want to learn more about the debate last night and the highlights that we saw, you can head over to our website. That's WWMT.com. Reporting live in Kalamazoo, Hannah Knowles, News Channel 3.